Hello, everyone. It's been over a week since Gen Con, and it's time now to return to our usual daily programming, which means now that it's time for me to give you what's been happening in the world of tabletop gaming. Granted, for this episode, spoilers, it's mostly going to be about Gen Con. So let's get to it for the week of August 14th, 2023. So, like I said, Gen Con happened. And most of the news are going to basically be stories from Gen Con with a couple little different side things. But first, let's actually talk about Gen Con itself. Now, Gen Con was growing in size like many conventions until the pandemic happened. Back then, we actually broke the record in 2019 with about 70,000 attendees. And as the years returned and we can go back, first, we turned back in 2021, where there was about 35,000. Then 22 brought us around 50. And this year, they said well over 70,000. I do not have an exact number, but they did say they broke the record of 2019. So I'm assuming 2019 was probably just very close, like rounding around 70,000, when this was much more obviously over it. Now, some people have said Disney Lorcana was one of the big attributing factors. We'll have more on them later. And I think that is true. That said, I do think just based on all the people I talked to, the people running booths, because more than any time I can think in previous years, there wasn't a single booth that didn't tell me about one of their games selling out. Multiple times that they had to get air shipments or someone had to drive overnight to pick up more at a warehouse. It really feels like not only were there just more people there, but there were more people buying. I believe it's similar to a lot of news reports. I think there was actually a few years or a year or two, not few, it started. But I think this year is a part of it of sort of a revenge travel, aka people who didn't really get to experience traveling or just recreational things because of everything that's been happening in the last few years. And I think that was definitely part of it here. We had a lot more people because they wanted to attend more and they felt like this is the year they felt they could go. That's why more people were buying board games. And I think a lot of the board game companies didn't expect and maybe didn't bring as much stock because they didn't know it was going to have such huge numbers. Overall, though, this is great. And I'm really happy to hear not only that we broke attendance records, but that we also had a lot of sellout games, because that means hopefully the more people brought games home, and then more people will be excited to pick up more games, and publishers will bring more games, making it much harder to maybe sell out on the game you were hunting down for. Let's see if we can break this record next year as well. Now, let's go back to Disney's Lorcana. And this news here, you probably already know if you were at Gen Con or you watched my live streams. Basically, I want to talk about how pretty much forced Gen Con to rewrite rules. Now, if you weren't at Gen Con and didn't hear about this, Disney Lorcana was very hot, so a lot of people arrived early and apparently made their own fan-made line. When Gen Con opened up, apparently the line wasn't honored because it wasn't an official line by the store, and security had their own rules and to follow them, as nothing like this has been remotely happening from what I can tell in Gen Con's past, which led to, of course, something more akin to what you'd expect on a Black Friday. And that's not too much of a surprise considering all the stuff that's happened around Disney Lorcana. Of course, some people, myself included, were wondering if they're even going to sell it at Gen Con. Obviously, they did. And if it'll still be allowed to be in print. And I'd be shocked if anything happens at this point for a lot of reasons. But regardless, people want their hands on this product. And it caused a bit of a debacle that first day. So the people who work at Ravensburger with the Disney Lorcana, as well as Gen Con staff, actually decided to sort of change some rules. Usually they kick everyone out. You go home, do your own events. But they decided they're going to have a special area that you could start lining up for Disney Lorcana for the rest of the convention starting at 6 p.m. And this line would be honored. This is not something actually too much of a surprise if you ever, or if you're old enough to remember the old camping out for a game system or video game. This worked out much better. Apparently, I don't know whether this was during the fixed lines. I've been told, I didn't give an exact time, but that Ravensburger was also trying to help the situation by giving out coffee and donuts. I think they just didn't want a repeat of the hassle that happened earlier on Thursday. But needless to say, the rest of the days tend to work much better. I think they sold out every time, so Disney Lorcana still did very well at Gen Con. And of course, this is now the testing grounds for if any other major releases need something like this. Hopefully Gen Con will learn from this and be able to take this situation, these rules, and have them in their back pocket and have them implemented maybe Thursday as well, so there isn't any of the pandemonium beforehand. Now we've got 2 stories from Magic the Gathering. We'll start with the bad news first. Before Gen Con started, for those who are just regular con goers, it appears that over $300,000 of Magic the Gathering products were stolen right off the convention floor. 2 people who brought their own pallet lift just basically walked in there, took a pallet, and walked out with it. Now, initially, we didn't know what was stolen, just that it was a bunch of boxes that looked like what you'd expect in terms of trading card games in large warehouses, but it was confirmed to be Magic the Gathering product and from a store, Pastime Comics and Games. Now, they were there holding events, and apparently they were still able to hold events even though this product was stolen. But the other interesting twist is, first of all, no surprise, people were caught on camera taking this. Second, based on the video footage, not only does it seem the police have some very good suspects in mind, but they are board game designers. Thomas Dunbar and Andrew Pearson, who designed the game Castle Assault, look very similar to the people who are stealing the product. Not only that, and by the way, side note, if you look at the images, they're not wearing masks, which I'm sort of impressed because if you're going to steal something, now of all times, no one would question if you just had a mask on because we're still, COVID is still around and whatnot. But the other thing is, it seems that they're wearing shirts for their game. To my knowledge, there hasn't been an official arrest, just wanting to talk with them. It looks pretty damning to say the least. And now, though, onto the good news for Magic the Gathering. I didn't know this, but apparently Magic was first announced and released at Gen Con 30 years ago. Since we hit a big milestone, they decided to return in a big way for this Gen Con. And they did so by having a huge release of everything that's going to come out. Now, usually we get to see maybe like a year or 2 ahead, little spoilers. This was, I think, almost 6 years out of everything they have in the pipeline. So they don't have everything finalized, especially the farther out you go. It's more just the name and idea, but there's still some pretty cool stuff. Now, for those who are already big Magic fans, there's going to be some returns of popular planes like Tarkir as well as Lorwyn. But for those of you who are new and want something more interesting, besides the usual things you may expect from Magic, they have some weird twists going on. We have a set that looks like it's based, or not based on, but the set kind of theme of small animals with swords, sort of your Redwall kind of deal. There's a Death Race set that's going to come out, going across multiple planes. Of course, they have an overarching theme. They didn't want to spell too much, obviously, on that. But it seems like the planes are going to just get more connected without the use of planeswalkers. And of course, they have now a ton of Universe Beyond sets. For those who don't know, Universe Beyond means the sets that are based off of other properties not originating from Magic the Gathering. So, for example, the previous released Warhammer 40k Commander decks, as well as the Lord of the Rings set, would fall under that title. Both were very well received, and I think also very cool products and cool cards. So I'm sort of excited, and not even from any more of the, I like this property, but also just, I think they do some really clever, cool things with these sets to try and make sure they fit the rules of whatever world they're visiting. What we're going to see, we've got Jurassic Park, that'll be very soon. We've also got Fallout and Assassin's Creed, but I know a big one a lot of people are super excited about is Final Fantasy. Regardless, I know a lot of people will be happy. At the same time, there are people who are worried that the game is basically just going to become games of like Smash Brothers or just every single reference and other properties rather than the own original Magic planes that get people so excited about. I find this interesting as one of the planes that people were most excited about returning to Lorwyn. One of the reasons people liked Lorwyn was because it was much more unique. It was a plane that didn't feature any humans. And I think while initially it didn't sell well, and the same thing for some other planes, I think people like the more weird and unique planes. That said, people also like being able to recognize characters they've seen before. So it's definitely a balancing act. And we'll see what happens. We're seeing a lot more of the Universe Beyond. But so far, like I said, I will say at the very least, the Universe Beyond cards have been, I think, really cool and interesting. We'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, sales will always be the thing that determines how Hasbro moves forward here. But at the very least, I'm sure some people are going to be very happy that they'll be able to play either the Brotherhood of Steel or the Assassins in their game of, let's face it, Commander. Now, this next story didn't happen at Gen Con. However, it is Wizards of the Coast, so still got a segue going on. We learned that apparently that for the art of the new D&D book, Big B Presents Glory of the Giants, that one of the giants in question did use AI art to generate it. Now, the piece itself wasn't completely AI generated, according to the artist. They actually used their own sketch first and used AI art to sort of sharpen it and do the final little touch-ups on it. They put up an image that they did take down. I have the image here so you can sort of see the difference of where they, where they stopped drawing themselves and then the final AR version. This, of course, has led to a lot of speculation of the art through not just this book, but other D&D books. I know, for example, one of the other giants people were suspect about based on how it looks, if AI also affected that as well. And this artist is not new. Ilya Shipkin, who's been doing art for D&D apparently since 5e. So this is not like some random art they just got in first time with AI art, which of course then makes things a little bit more complicated as people are now wondering when did the art start seeping into D&D. Wizards of the Coast has stated that they're going to change their rules and the way they talk to artists, making sure it's very clear you're not allowed to use AI art in our D&D books. And that was also, by the way, something I found very interesting. They said in our D&D. I don't know if this rule is going to apply to Magic the Gathering as well, which if you think needs a lot more pieces of art, which means it's going to be a lot more tempting to use AI art to maybe fill in the gap of maybe, I don't know, common or something. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, or maybe Wizards of the Coast is leaving themselves a little loophole so they can use AI art for their other products. We'll have to wait and see, and of course, see if we can catch it just like we did with this piece here. Our final story is about a game on Kickstarter called Farms Race. This was actually recently taken down because apparently there is an IP dispute issued against them by Stonemaier Games. This is not actually because of the game itself, but rather a special promo pack that was something you can add on for the Kickstarter. Now, from the sound of it, it sounds like it was things from their game on cards that looked like and designed to fit in other games. Because of the Kickstarter being taken down, there's the only image I can see is the one for Stonemeier's game, Wingspan. I'll put the image up here. You can see what original Wingspan card art is and what their promo is designed to look like. Now, I think the font's a little different, but all the symbols are the same. Honestly, just based on images of like in person, I don't know if the cards are designed to be different stock, different size, different backs, so they can't be used in the game. But I could understand and be confused of this as an actual Wingspan promo. I don't know about any other games. To my knowledge right now, it's just Stonemaier Games involved in the dispute here. And because, like I said, this is a promo pack, not the game itself, I wouldn't be surprised if right now they're just in the discussion of whether to remove the promo pack completely or just some deal of changing it if they want to keep something around like that. Because, like I said, you can't see the game now, but to my knowledge, the game itself didn't use any of the symbolism or iconography that would trip over copyright kind of deals. Like it was all in this promo pack. So we'll have to wait and see, but an interesting case and one that I'm very curious to see what the actual outcome is because, like I said, not the core game, a little Kickstarter add-on. Now for some game announcements, most of them were new things announced at Gen Con. First, we have a new Horrified, this one based on Greek mythology. Then we have a sequel to the popular deck building game Dune Imperium, this one titled Dune Imperium Uprising. This is not an expansion. It's actually designed to be sort of following the story, the next set of working more with the Freemen, still having deck building elements and whatnot. And then Starfinder is also getting the second treatment. If you don't remember, Pathfinder got a Pathfinder 2.0. Starfinder is now getting that second edition. However, this will be released in 2 years, meaning you still have time to use whatever Starfinder stuff you like. In fact, within the next year, they're going to do more play testing to mess around and see what rules need to be tweaked, what people like. So if you do enjoy Starfinder, especially next year, make sure you pick up some of that test material, try to play with people, and that way you can give your suggestions on making sure 2.0 fits what you think Starfinder needs to improve on. And finally, it's not technically new, but still nice to hear about. The old Game Boy Pokemon trading card game is now available on the Nintendo Switch. This is a fun, light one, and one of the few ways that you can play a trading card game that doesn't include a bunch of microtransactions and buying more packs. So if you have a Nintendo Switch, it's a great, fun, light pickup. So give it a shot. But for now, that's all the news we're going to be covering right now. I've got, of course, more reviews, more things, going to get back into the swing of things. So thank you so much for your wait, and thank you so much for tuning into this. But for now, I'm Will, and this has been the News Roundup.